everybody. We are live in person and we are live online. I know like it probably won't be very much longer, like another 6 months or a year. Well, this will be like passé, but I'm like giddily excited that people are joining us, online. So for the folks online, welcome, welcome. Know that I can't see your comments just yet for a few minutes until we switch over to Anne's screen, who is our amazing speaker today. So just a couple of housekeeping things before I introduce Anne. I have the pleasure of introducing Anne. And I just want to quickly do a round. We'll do an icebreaker in a moment, but if you want to introduce yourself by name, and if you can tell us a role that you play, and that can be, it can be professional, it can be personal, it can be whatever you like. Jenny, are you okay with starting?
Yes, I'm good. Okay. So I came in very quickly and sat down, thought I was late. I thought I was the naughty one in the class. My name is Jenny Al-Jadi, and the role I have been playing recently is mediator.
Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you.
I don't know, to look there, it's always hard.
Consider the camera another person.
So I'm John Cornwell. I think the role I play is a facilitator, particularly in social inclusion.
Hi everyone, I'm Stanley from Spire. I've been teaching all my life. I've been paid to teach the last couple of years, so I'm excited. The role I play is learner most of the time.
Oh.
I learn, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Diana, and just like Stanley, I've been teaching for slightly above a decade now, and yeah, the role I play is imparting knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Paul Clark, and I am working with offshore teams. I've been a people manager for 10 or 15 years, and I'm looking at ways of engaging and retaining offshore and remote workers.
Welcome.
My name is Paul Anker. I've been teaching in Denmark for all my life and grown up in children in different places, and I'm trained as a psychologist.
I'm an old teacher too, and I'm working with refugees in Denmark.
My name is Hannah, and the role I play is the daughter of these two.
My name is Jodie, and the role I've been playing this week is being a weird mom.
A weird?
That builds character. That's what I read this morning, so I was like, okay, I'm forwarding that one to my teacher. A weird mom builds character.
Yes. My name's Leanne, and the role I'm playing right now is I'm starting up, and I'm just doing it. And this is what I'm doing. I'm just doing it now.
Nice.
And I'm a teacher and an accountant and a mom and a wife and everything else. But right now, I'm doing it.
Welcome.
My name is Anita Shankar, and I'm a planner. This weekend, I met with someone who said, "Who knows what they're doing in June?" And I thought, I know what I'm doing. But I like to have something set so I can let the other things flow. But I realize it brings me a bit of.
My name's Claire, and I was going to say that my role is a learner, but seeing you already took that one, I'm going to copy Leanne's the little one that she always writes when she says, fellow learning adventurer and explorer.
Nice. We're going to find out all about Anne very soon. She's our lovely guest speaker, which I'm so happy to have her. We've been working for about a year to try to get this date to be set up. And to the folks on live, if you want to write a comment, I can read it out to the group. I can see your comments now. Brizan, who was our introduced the workshop last time we met, he's online. He says, "Thank you, Lee. I'm online and great to be live." If anyone else wants to leave a comment, welcome, welcome. I can see your comments now. My name's Leanne. I'm the founder and facilitator of the Roundtable. And the role I'm playing right now is celebrator, because this is 5 years we've been meeting. Yeah. November 30th will be 5 years. So I have a little goodie here. Sorry to the folks online that we don't have the technology yet to, you know.
We have to imagine it.
Yes, we need some kind of Star Trek, you know, transporter thing. But I have some plantain chips here, some little packages. So if you guys want to pass those around, and just I think there's 5 packages in there, so you can do kind of a rough calculation. And just really blessed and excited that people keep coming. We have over 500 people are on the mailing list, and increasingly, just last night I got an email from a retired judge who's worked in Kenya, who is living in Canada right now, who does alternative dispute resolution and teaches, and she's like, I'm a tech dinosaur, and I'm like, well, I don't think you're a tech dinosaur because you managed to get into the Facebook group. So she may or may not be online with us. I know she was, it's about midnight in her time zone, but she says she's a night owl. So if you're there, Nancy, welcome, welcome. And also, I just happened, as Facebook's algorithms are, to see a Philippine Society for Training and Development. So I just message them and say, hey, we have this roundtable. If you want to join, feel free. We'd love to collaborate. So we've had a little bit of conversation, and apparently it's gone to their membership, and so I don't know where that's going to end up. But I think, you know, Anita was saying the online isn't meant to replace in person, but it's a cool, interesting alternative. And also for the people who are here live, to be able to reach out to people, you know, overseas and even across Waiaki Way, which is like, you know, which is overseas, yeah. For people online, if you're not from Kenya, it's a very short distance, but traffic makes it seem like it's another country from where we are. Yeah. So happy birthday, everyone! 5 years, 5 years. And may there be, you know, 50 more years, yeah. Wanted to let you know that, hi, good morning.
I'm watching online. Can you turn your camera 90 degrees because I have to watch like this?
Oh, okay. So that's interesting that you're here physically, but you're watching online.
Yeah.
Cool, okay. Can you help us with do you mind just doing that? So thank you.
That was my device, and then I saw another comment.
Oh, okay. I can't see the. Okay. So sorry to the people online. It's going a little.
That's how it was.
Yeah. Okay. If you can figure out the tripod, I'm just going to keep rolling with this.
What we're going to do is just put it like this.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm going to put it like this, and we will see. Just check your comments.
Okay.
Because now you might be upside down.
Okay. Let's see.
You don't want to stay. It's not upside down.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of.
I'm upside down.
Yeah. Upside down.
So, you know, just like 6 months from now, it's going to be they couldn't figure this out. Like this is so simple. Oh, Leanne's coming to help too. So.
Now you. Oh, you're.
There you go.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold on.
Hold on.
It's a bit of delay.
Maybe. Now there's a black screen.
Because the cameras are facing the wrong way, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Still upside down?
No, I think it's fun now. And I only see one comment, so maybe older? No?
Can you scroll down up a bit?
Yeah, you should be fine now.
There you go.
There! Yay! Okay, maybe.
That's a delay.
Okay, that's a real delay. And I don't know why I can't see the other comments. There's only one. So there are other.
Yeah. There was already a couple.
Okay, I'm gonna refresh it. But usually it refreshes.
That's why I came here, because I was not the only one that.
Oh, thank you. That's
let me go there.
And sorry, what's your name?
My name is Stefan.
Stefan, thank you.
I'm the new chair of UN Class.
Oh, great. Okay, awesome. Okay.
In the middle of.
Oh, there we are.
I was watching it while I was doing other stuff.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry for the disruption.
Thank you. No, it's not disruption at all. Brizanne says better. Aaron says perfect. And Deborah Lee says, tell Jody to take my gift. So Deborah Lee says, tell Jody to take my gift. Okay, so sorry for people online. So just to say that I'm informally going to look for other people, other groups around the world, and who knows, we could easily have lots of interesting, not that we don't already have lots of interesting, but pulling in other groups, I think would be a cool thing. Also to let you know that your thank you cards were delivered to Kushal, Fatma, and Wilfrida, who are the 3 people that make it possible for us to meet here, and we've been approved for another year to meet on the compound. Yeah. And Kushal has agreed to meet with security with me, the 3 of us, to see how we can make this easier. And because if this is your first time, it has been very difficult to get you on the compound for you and for us. So we'll make that work. And thank you for your patience too. Now I have to ask for your ID unit. So your ID, know that information, I don't share that with anyone else but security, and I don't do anything with that. So. Also, in terms of accessing the compound, and to people online, we're going to get to that really soon. Just hang on. If you can please arrive by 10 a.m. Obviously, all the people here did that. We don't want it. Claire has been volunteering to hand out the badges, and we don't want her to miss the session waiting for people who get there to 10. So that's there's a half-hour window to arrive to give between 9:30 and 10. So hopefully that works. Donations. I'll pass this around. If you can manage 1,000 shillings to donate, that would be great. Ideally, a minimum of 300, because that's what these badges cost, whether you show up or not. So we've paid 300 shillings for these badges. And you might say, why am I asking for 1,000 when the badges are only 300? Not everyone can afford 300 shillings, and also 100% of the difference goes to be donated once a year, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. So feel free, my phone number's on there. If you want to M-Pesa, feel free, or give cash. That's welcome. Guest speaker, of course, accepted. And no. I said accepted. Accepted. Like not applied. No. So speaking of donations, it's that time of year again. And we only got 2 applications. So this is an application for the money that we have collected that we haven't spent on the name tags. So Brizan, who spoke last time, nominated his group. And I know there's talk between myself and Claire and one of my kiddos, about actually going up and volunteering up there. To do some work, so we'll see. And I know Deborah Lee, I think, who's online, she's interested in organizing some donations for there. In terms of the donations, I'm hoping that we can quickly decide right now, if that doesn't feel too rushed, or you let me know. Let's see if I can find them here quickly. Did people get why are they not coming up here? Okay. So the 2 to choose from, well, first of all, does it feel okay to vote right now? Like, make that, if I can very quickly review the information? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so Brizan, I know through the Amani Institute. He spoke last time. He's from Turkana. And he nominated his organization, okay? And the information is here. Jenny, do you want to very carefully move the cameras so they can see the either my screen or the big screen? So they really focus on Turkana girls and boys and pastoralist children. So their needs are building a child center, getting play items, uniforms, etc. And they have a governance system that you can see there. I know I'm going pretty quickly, you just let me know. And then Adam Brown nominated iAfrica, who he knows through family involvement in church, and it focuses on male youth refugees. And they have big goals, putting up a 3rd story on a school, etc. And they have a board for compliance. So, do you feel like you can make a decision between those 2? Okay.
How much is the amount?
That's a good question. So not including today, we have 37,562 shillings. Okay. To be, I'm very precise with the numbers. Like, you trust me with this money, I take very good care of it, I promise. Okay, so should we take a vote then? Okay, so, and feel free, for those people who are online, Brizanne, I'll ask you not to vote, just obviously because it's your organization. Oh, Deborah Lee's already voted, that's great. Yes?
Is it possible to split the money?
It's not a huge amount of money, more logistics, more, I don't know, what do you guys think? One is easier? Yeah.
We'll make a bigger impact.
Make a bigger impact, yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you're okay to vote then? Okay, so all in favor of Brizanne's group, raise your hand. Okay. And all in favor of Brizanne's probably, I can't see who many people put up their hand. And all in favor of iAfrica? Okay. Okay. And I'm just checking online to see what people are saying. Oh, and Aaron's asked where should we donate? Okay. So first of all, let me just, because he's online and live, say, Brizanne, we picked you. So congratulations. Yay. So we'll figure out how to make that happen and also get updates on what's done with that money. And Aaron, how to donate online? That's a good question. If you're not in East Africa and can't M-Pesa, I have a PayPal account. Let me think about that, and I'll figure that out, because that would be great to.
If Western Union is now linked with M-Pesa, so if you can get to Western Union, you can get to send through M-Pesa. I don't know how it works, but I know it works.
Okay. 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 Great. Okay. I'm thinking probably staying, like not having to physically leave your office and whatever might be easier. Just do it through PayPal, but okay. Okay, so I'm so lost without my phone, which is how I make notes of what to remember. So someone remind me, please, that I have to remember how to figure out how, if people online want to donate, how to do that. So that's great. You got, and that's all of your money from the whole year. So thank you, everyone. That's a real blessing. Really quickly, because this came in, because I had the privilege of doing a session for Here We Are on tech, and so I thought I should maybe show you something that I've been working on lately. I'm redesigning my website and was almost crying in frustration of having to write copy. It's painful. It's not my strength. I just can't tell you how much I dreaded every morning waking up and having to do this. So finally one day I woke up, I'm like, Leanne, you should hire a copywriter. There's people who like to do this. This is their job. Like, so I put out the call, and a dear, dear colleague and friend of mine was like, this woman is incredible. If you can get her, we're a match made in heaven. I'm so happy. And it all sponsored a blog post about trying to really, what I'm calling, find your flow and glow. Like that space where you're flow and you're in glow. So I've used Fiverr, some of you will remember this from Here We Are, to create an infographic that I'm going to write a whole blog post on about finding your flow and glow. So this is what it looks like. You know, it cost you $5, and you put it in. They gave it to me, and I needed a few revisions. So we've gone back and forth with the revisions. By the way, can they see the screen? And this is what it looks. This is what the latest. It needs a few revisions, but $5, right? So easy, simple, fun, right? Like I wake up like, oh, did I get my infographic today? So just a really simple way to use an interesting ed tech tool. Has anyone else here used Fiverr?
Just because you, and I'm like, right, I'm on this. So I've been looking, I'm getting myself into circles, I'm trying to find, so I'm starting a business, and before I do anything, I just need a name.
Yeah.
I need a name. There's so many people on Fiverr that do it for you.
Yeah.
You know, choosing someone.
Yes.
And then also giving them the information online, you know, it's writing to them saying that this is what we're about, and hoping they. But I kind of think, well, if I'm spending $20 on something, I should might as well just do it and see what comes of it. So I'm dabbling.
So maybe something that will help you here is I'm not using Fiverr because it's going to cost more than $5. I'm using another platform. Jenny, can you make sure that they can see this if you don't mind? To design an online fortune teller. Do you remember those things where you go like this? Right? So I want an online one. So I went onto a different platform, and then you get these, you get these responses. So I had my virtual assistant take the responses and put them in an Excel spreadsheet. Right? And then now I can go back and say, oh, I need to ask this person this thing, or, so that's one way. Because when, Fiverr, you don't have bids, like you have to, go, but you can take their information and put it onto a spreadsheet.
What are you using for that?
This is a program, it's a new name now. It used to be called Elance and Odesk, and they amalgamated into a new company called, if you just Google it, it's like Work something, and it's amazing. So I put my bid out. I say I need someone to do this, and you can get incredibly granular. Like it got so granular that I'm like, I don't know, do I need HTML5? I don't know what that is. Like very, very specific. And then their profiles come up, and it's all social, so you can see their portfolios of their work, what they've been rated, all that kind of stuff. And then you click a button, your post goes live, and in my experience, within minutes, people are bidding on your job. It's really cool. Yeah, really cool. And you can chat with them. You can say, hey, Leanne, what about this thing? Or
and just going to tell you one thing. Workflow has changed my life. I'm honest. And it's as if I've always been honest.
So this is turning into a bit of a tech talk.
Sorry, I have to just say
I'm excited. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Workflowy is an online, it's like an online list thing, and all of the lists are nested. So I use this probably 100 times a day. I'm constantly on this. And anything with a little, and it's free, it's totally free. Anything with a purple circle means it's shared with someone. And you can share it in a way that they can edit your list or not edit it. It's very cool, yeah. Okay, I'm tickled, that's so great. Oh, that's very happy about that. Okay, so we've got the dates for next year, all of our dates, and I think I've remembered to take into account all the Kenyan holidays, so you don't have to change. So January 19th is our next one. We don't meet in December, and I thought we could do the Community Canvas, which is this really cool community development tool. We'll use that as a networking thing. And then Ilya and Anita are going to speak from the Global Trauma Center. Then another networking session on, has anyone seen the infographic Meet the Modern Learner? It's I think it was done by Deloitte. It's a really popular infographic. I thought that could be a cool networking thing to talk about where are people at with learning. That's a networking session. And then, if you guys are up for this, Fiona has agreed, who might be online. Hey, Fiona. She said she was going to come. She is the person at the Canadian High Commission who's responsible for when Canadians get in trouble overseas, so they're being...
They often do.
I've been in that situation once. High Commission, please help me. But seriously, when people are being abused or held against their will, she gets people out of those countries and back to Canada. So what does that have to do with learning and development? I thought it could be cool if she gave us some scenarios, like, okay, because it's not about learning how Canada deals with Canadians, and like that's not the point of it. But she could give some scenarios, like you've gotten a call, Canadians are being held against their will, what do you do? So it's about making decisions in conflict situations when things are high stake. And then we would divide up into small groups, try to figure out what to do, and then she would tell us what she actually did. And then go on to, and she might bring her American counterpart. So again, it's not about how to deal with people who are outside their home country. It's about learning some lessons around decision making, conflict resolution, high stakes, real pressure. Yeah, like they're at the border, the guns are pointing at them. How do we get them out? Of interest, I think. Okay. And then potentially we could do this How to Learn MOOC for networking session in May. That's a long way off, so we can talk more about that. If you have ideas of sessions you want, topics, speakers, please, whether they're networking or a guest speaker, please let me know, especially online. If you're making comments, I'm not quite on that screen yet, so I can't see, but I'll shift over in just a minute. These, I thought maybe I should bring them to show you, because I've mentioned this a number of times, and people, I think, were not necessarily clear on what I was talking about. It's these cards that have gone missing. This is my personal set, okay, from the resource library. So these have been gone a long time, and they're the most popular resource in the library, and they're very expensive. These are worth over $100. So if you know where they are, and your dog ate them or your child flushed them down the toilet, it's okay, just let me know. It would be great to figure out where these went. Any other comments, questions, queries about the process, like housekeeping things? You're good?
Leanne, I'm concerned about the resources, especially that online. Being a previous borrower and knowing how good it is. But do people not sign out with their name?
They do now. They do now.
So,
yeah.
But you genuinely don't know who has that.
I've emailed many times. I asked the last person who had them.
So
yeah.
It's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Abby, the guy who makes them, he was so excited about us because they've been going all over the place, but they're somewhere. I mean, I put a link to them, so I'm hoping that with the link people will know, because some people thought I was talking about the desire map stuff. So okay, let's do a quick icebreaker and then over to Anne. So I've got some blank pieces of paper here. If you want to take one between two people. So there's an odd number on each side. Maybe Claire and Paul, do you guys want to? And for those of you online, you don't need a piece of paper. You can just do this in the comments section. So take your piece of paper and fold it into 4. Okay, so between the two of you, just give me 2 seconds. Oh, because I'll need to do your Okay, so one piece of paper for 2 people, and I've just made this icebreaker up, and it comes from 30 years ago when I was doing a speed reading course, or like a reading comprehension course. They talked about if you're proactive about what you're reading, you're going to remember it better. So I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because Anne has so much good stuff to say. So what I'd like you to do is, in the 4 quadrants that you've created, okay, and for those of you online, think about 4 words. Pick a prompting word that has to do with Anne's topic. Okay, so pick 4 prompting words. So for example, learning company, brand strategist, learning method, training trainers. I took these from her workshop description. Remote, change, global. Okay, it could be any of those things. So pick 4 of them, okay, from up there, and write 1 in each quadrant. So pick 4 of those words and write 1 in each quadrant.
Do we have our own word, or are we sure?
You guys, between the 2 of you, you can pick 4.
And it has to be those?
Nope, it can be other ones. These are just prompts. It doesn't have to be those.
But what we want to learn, or what we're excited to discover.
You're getting ahead. Yeah. So just a word that piques your curiosity. Okay, and for those of you online, let's see if I can see the screen at the same time. So for those folks online, feel free to pick 4 words from the agenda. The link to the agenda is in a previous post. And some of the prompting words on there are learning company, brand strategist, learning method, training trainers, remote, change, global, online learning, best practices, curiosity, engaging, or interactive. Meg, I see your comment that there's an app called Waze. I don't know if that's how you say it, which is linked with M-Pesa. You can send money from North American Bank, no fees. Wow. Meg, thank you. That's amazing. Wow. Okay, I'll totally look into that. Okay, have you got at least one word down? One word down? Okay, at least one, if not 4. Okay, now, and for the folks online, for the words that you've picked, pick one. Now write a question that you'd like answered to do with that topic. Okay, that's something that you're keen and curious about in terms of what Anne's going to talk about. So for an example, if I pick brand strategist as one of my words, my question might be, that's cool, what's a brand strategist? Or what does a brand strategist have to do with learning and development? Or what are some things that brand strategists are up to lately? Or how did Anne become a brand strategist? You get the idea? Okay, so pick one of your 4 words and write a question about it. And for those of you online, feel free to write a question. I can see your comments and would love. Here, actually, I can copy and paste all of these. Are just sample prompting words. You can pick whichever one you want. Okay, have you got your question?
For all of them?
If you've done more than one, that's great. Okay.
There's only one.
Okay. And now switch your paper with a Teams paper. Okay. So take your. If you've done all 4, that's great. Yeah. So switch your piece of paper with another team. Okay, so switch with another team and read their questions. Okay. And then add a question on their paper. Okay, so switch your piece of paper. Okay. Okay, and make sure you add another question. So add a question to their paper. Claire and Paul, did you guys get a chance to switch your paper? Yeah, okay, great. Brizanne saying, loving the discussion, wish was present. We wish you were here too, Brizanne.
Yeah. And a link to that, you know, I was wondering, people say it's got to have arms and legs, you know. And I'm always tempted to say, so what? You know, in other words.
So you have the rest of the time.
Once it's 5 minutes.
No, I just mean,
It's like you.
oh, we go 10 minutes. You got like 5 minutes. Okay, and switch your papers back. Okay, switch your papers back. Back to the original, yeah. Okay, so pulling back, if we can have the attention back to the large group. Okay. So how did that work as an icebreaker? Any comments? Could you see yourself using it? Sorry? Oh, so maybe should I have done like 2 questions? Was 4 too many? Okay. Okay.
Or spending more time.
Okay. Increase the time. Okay. 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 Good. Okay.
I think it's good because the one thing you need is it makes you what's in it for me.
Okay. Did you hear that comment?
No, I said I think it's good because so many times people come to training and they're like, oh God, what am I doing here? But it actually creates the what's in it for me. You're actually driving your own what's in it for me.
Yeah. So from a brain-based learning perspective, right? You're massaging that amygdala. You're sinking people into the learning, and you're getting them engaged, right? Like you're getting them to be proactive. Meg says, learning method. Does this refer to the learner or the teacher, trainer, or both? Meg, is that your question for the? I'm assuming that's your question that you want answered. Okay, cool. Nice. And Brizan says, loving the discussion, wish was present. Okay. Okay, so think about those questions as Anne goes through. Caveat, one of the dangers of doing this is people might ask questions that it's not part of her, her talk, which is fine. You can refer people to resources afterwards. So I am now going to introduce Anne. Actually, you're going to introduce Anne. As is our practice, she has given us 6 words, and you can pick 2 or 3 that she'll introduce herself with. So the 6 words are up on the screen there. Fernway, is that how you say that?
Fernway.
Fernway is one of them. Dutch, tampons and lipstick. Oh, I really hope you picked that one. Monotasking, mental gymnastics, and visual illiteracy. What's one of those concepts that you want her to introduce herself with? Tampons? Okay. Tampons and lipstick. Okay, one more. Visual, and one more? Mental.
Fernway.
Okay, I heard more Fernway. Okay, so that word, tampons and lipstick, and mental gymnastics. There's Anne.
Hi everyone. I'm going to connect this laptop in a minute. Okay, let's start with Fernweh. It's a German word. Do you know the word Heimweh? Heim is home and weh is pain, and it's used by people to express a sense of longing to be home if you're far away. And so I suffer from the opposite, which is the longing to be away from home. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, but I've lived and worked in a lot of different places. I've been in Kenya for 2.5 years, and this sense of Fernweh is really instilled in me. So I try to make possible through my work as much as possible to travel and to meet people in different places, to have new experiences. And it's an once I knew that this concept existed, I was like, ooh, that's me. And it's a good thing to realize. The tampon and lipstick story actually is included in my talk, but since I'm introducing myself. So I'm a brand strategist. I have worked in this field for about 13 years. And the tampon and lipstick case was a case I worked on for the biggest drugstore chain in the Netherlands. And they came to me and said, we need you to come up with a compelling reason why people should come to our drugstore instead of to the 4 other drugstore chains that are out there. And that's a really tough question, but this is the kind of question that you get when you're a brand developer. Right, so you're sitting there and you're looking at, here's a tampon and lipstick, It's exactly the same tampon and lipstick as the next person is selling at exactly the same price. Why should people come to this store over another store? And I think that question led to a journey that I'm still on, that I'll tell you more about. What was the third word that you guys chose? Visual literacy, yeah. I graduated as a designer on the topic of visual literacy. This is a field not a lot of people know about, but there is the normal illiteracy of not being able to read and write. But in a lot of remote places, non-Western places often, people also don't know how to read or write images. So those could be photos and pictograms and illustrations. And this is a huge problem because a lot of development organizations, when they're reaching out to these remote communities that often can't read and write, they start using visual messages. So for my graduation project, I was in Mali, Africa, and there were people using these overviews of everything that you could do to prevent getting infected with HIV/AIDS, and they'd made all these pictograms of sexual acts. And then they'd used red, yellow, and green to indicate whether the act was dangerous or not. And I was looking, and I remember I asked the person from the German Development Organization, like, have you ever tested whether this works or not? She's like, why? I'm like, well, because people don't have pictograms here, and there is no traffic lights. And she's like, what does this have to do with traffic lights? I was like, well, red is stop, and this is how we are culturally indoctrinated throughout our life. And so we tested it with users, and they were like, no, this is the colors of the Mali flag. I was like, that makes sense. And so these kinds of things of how do people think, how do their brains work, and how can you make things work for them, I thought that was a big eye-opener for me, at least during my studies. Then I'm going to switch to my presentation. Cool. The mental gymnastics will be plenty of... Oh, that's very orange. That's cute. Okay. So, what I wanted to talk to you guys about was how I'm learning to run a learning company. And I just wanted to start because my topic is branding. So I just wanted to start with asking you guys what branding means to you. Anything. There's no wrong answers here. If you think about brands or about the act of branding. Getting noticed?
Yeah, standing out.
Yeah?
That's all I'm thinking about. I'm dreaming about branding at the moment. So how do I brand myself to stand out compared to all the millions?
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, branding is about helping to guide or create the perception that other people have of you.
Yeah, perfect.
Or your business.
Yeah.
And can I just ask a technical question? For the folks online, there's 8 folks online, by the way. So we have a camera pointing at you, not the PowerPoint. Are you okay with sharing the PowerPoint later on that folks can see it?
No, sorry.
Not this one. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay.
I think branding, people like to be associated with the brand that they recognize and that has done them right. And it only needs to do them right once or twice, and then the brand gets recognized.
Stickiness.
It's stickiness, yeah.
Folks online are saying selling and marketing.
For me, which is a real challenge, it's about, because I'm a coach, so I'm self-employed, it's actually finding the best possible way through colours and words and pictures to actually bring out who I am and what I offer.
Yeah, so these are all really good answers. Sometimes we get the answer like, oh, logo. Okay, yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But I think you all have highlighted different aspects of branding that I think are really important. So yeah, we look at it as directing how other people think and feel about it. And I think this is really, really important, especially if you're working in the area of social and environmental change, that you're able to articulate what you do, that you're able to get the support that you need to actually create an impact. I'm the founder of The Branding, and we help social entrepreneurs to sell themselves better, and we do that through a self-developed method and tools, through trainings, and through creating a community worldwide of social entrepreneurs and linking them with brand strategists and other allies from the creative sector to make sure that they get the brands that they deserve. And this has been quite a journey, and I'll go through this journey with you today. So it's not a question of a promotional presentation on my end of what we do, but mostly about what are all the different challenges that we've encountered. I hope that's of use, and I would be really happy to get everyone's feedback and input. And also, if you want to just ask something straight away so we make it a conversation, that's really nice for me.
I can type it in.
Someone one day will fix this. Okay, so the story of the company. So, as I explained, I'm trained as a designer. I started my work in Mali, and my graduation professor was the owner of a huge branding company. So after working in Mali, he told me, I think you're smart, I think you're a good designer, why don't you come work for the branding agency? And I thought, oh, this is really exciting because you get to be creative and strategic, and you get to work with all these different entrepreneurs and cultural institutes, and that was exciting, but it was also a big leap. So we went from Mali to branding the biggest telecom company in the Netherlands and creating a brand for the entire Dutch government. We did insurance companies that even had, oh, it's not charging. Is it on? There we go. We did Tour de France teams, branding, and so there was a lot of dynamics in the work. We also worked abroad, so I worked in East Asia and in the Middle East, and it was a lot of fun, but there should be more in life. So I was also a teacher at the Design Academy in Eindhoven, which is quite a renowned school for design. And then I became creative director at a company called Interbrand, which is the biggest branding firm in the world, I would say. And we did this drugstore project. And I was, at this point, working about 60 hours a week. I probably weighed 10 kilos less than I weigh now. And these things that you have to work on, it's so intense in terms of there is a company with a few thousand people that basically put their problem in your hands and hope that you can solve it within a few weeks. So it's very tough. And I started missing a lot the work that I felt was meaningful. And so I thought about how can branding actually contribute to doing something meaningful. So I looked at what am I personally passionate about, and what can I really do well in terms of my profession, and what is it that the world needs right now. And I decided to give it a go. So I quit my job, I became independent, and I asked myself basically a creative question. So how can I help create a world where a family starting a fair trade lemonade factory in Sierra Leone has access to as much information around branding as a company like Coca-Cola? So there's a few things about that question that I thought was really interesting. The first is that there needs to be easy access to training materials. These people have tiny, tiny budgets, Fiverr budgets, which seems to be the norm nowadays, but that's just so small. You need local experts. So you need a local design ecology, you need local strategists and marketeers, and you need relevant case studies. So without good examples, no one can learn. You can't come up with quality out of thin air. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So the first preliminary answer that I came up with was this idea that I could train social entrepreneurs to think more like brand strategists. And I wondered, like, can you do that? How do you do that? Let me go pilot this idea. So I sold my house, packed my bags. I developed a first few simple tools to have a foundation for what I was going to teach people. And I went on a world trip. So I went from the Netherlands to Tunisia to Zambia to Saudi Arabia to Ireland to Norway and back home. Because I wanted to see, is it relevant that what I'm saying, is it an actual problem? Do people think branding is keeping them from making a bigger impact? I wanted to know, what do these people really want to learn? Am I training the right person? Should I be working with the entrepreneur? And how can we do that in the best possible way and in a way that's affordable? So I've worked with all different types of people. This is Iski Burton. She's a professional surfer and a women's rights activist. She has, for instance, set up a school for women to learn how to surf in Iran. I went to, they come in all flavors. To co-working spaces and incubators and places where entrepreneurs come together to build their companies and grow them out. I was in Saudi, and then I got the opportunity to come to Nairobi. I'm pretty sure everyone here would be familiar with the Amani Institute. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So Roshan, bless his heart. So Roshan told me, like, oh, there's something in what you're saying. So why don't you come and create a 3-day course for me and help all the people that want to be professionals in the social sector, help them think more like brand strategists. And so these classes at Amani are about 22, 25 people, very different backgrounds. And so we created a program for them. And I think what you see with people, especially people who have a huge heart and have a drive to make a really big impact, that they often have problems articulating what it is that they want to do. Well, I mean, let's be honest, everyone has problems articulating what they do. But for them, it's even more crucial. So, for instance, in a pitch like this morning of like, okay, what are you going to do with those $350? If you're not able to articulate, this is the change I want to see, this is what I plan to do about it, this is why I deserve your support, it's going to be really hard for people, right? So we created the 3-day program for Amani Institute. And just to give you an idea of what we do, people come in, they make an analysis of brands they admire. We discuss with groups, what do you admire, what can you learn from it? And we then, over the course of 3 days, build the structure and clarify the structure for them of what is going to be the brand for your organization or your idea or your person for change. And what people do is they really have to think about, what do I want to achieve? Who am I in that capacity? So am I a person, or are we an initiative, a project, a company, etc.? What do we do exactly? You would think that's the easiest part. Very hard for people often to articulate. What is it that you do? And then we think about who needs to know about this and how can we make a plan for them to find out and be very strategic about that. And then once they've come up with this blueprint, they pitch it. So we have a pitch event at the end, and where people get feedback and we share. And then people have the plan that they then can take into the world and build their companies around. So after about 1.5 years of testing this, we realized, like, oh, okay, the first tool, it works well, but we need more. So we ended up, we have a canvas that presents like the holistic anatomy of a brand. So any brand that you might know, like Apple or Coca-Cola, has a really strong core and a personality, an idea about what do we stand for. And they then translate that outwards to a visual identity, a verbal identity, and all kinds of different ways where you experience them. So an Apple store looks like an Apple store for a reason, right? Or how you experience, for instance, certain customer sales, there's hopefully, if the brand does it well, there's reasons behind that, and that comes from that core. But we realized just understanding how this model works is enough. People need all kinds of advice, trademarking advice, how to select a name. I can tell you, please don't do it through Fiverr, and I can give you many reasons why. But
can you give me other places to do it?
Well, yeah, I would hire a naming consultant, but that's a different question. Or, well, I'll get into it at the end of the conversation. People need to have a basic understanding of digital marketing. That have questions around all kinds of implementation. So how do I work with a designer? In what order should I be doing things? So we decided to create a full toolkit. It's going to be added to the library. This is the first edition. Oops, it's going to be a slightly damaged edition. We decided to crowdfund it. So in 2015, at the end of the year, we crowdfunded the toolkit through Kickstarter. It was really exciting. And so as a result, we have a book that represents, that has the 23 different tools and exercises that we use during our workshops. It has guest essays from all these different experts in different areas of branding to share their knowledge. I don't know everything. It's such a big field. So we have someone on digital marketing and trademarking and how to get PR, for instance. And the whole process of how do you develop a brand from step 1 to step 44. Unfortunately, anyone who tells you here is 3 steps to building a brand, it doesn't work that way. It's not that simple. Where we stand today is that we've worked with over 1,000 people across the world. We are active in about 14 different countries. And recently this summer, we actually were in Sierra Leone, which was where my original question 3 years ago started of like, okay, how can you give people in Sierra Leone, how can you give entrepreneurs their access to better knowledge? We trained 40 marketeers there to be branding bosses, as they call themselves, so that they can support social and traditional entrepreneurs in the region, because it's been marketing and branding there are considered a huge a step that's needed in order to make the businesses there grow, just locally, but also internationally in terms of competition. And along the way, we've had a lot of people join us, so there's a kind of a tribe that formed around the company. And I realized, like, oh yeah, we're not just a company, like, we need to be able to open this up. So a metaphor that I always use for this is that I'm kind of the woman who's standing on the garden hose and who's keeping the water from really coming out. Yeah, part of this talk is about how do you get your foot off the garden hose. The reason actually why I think Leanne invited me was because we're also in the process of a pilot to train trainers. So that's what I'm going to talk about as well. Now, I think for this group, what's really good to know is that, so I'm one woman. I have no external funding in any way. I've never applied for a grant or subsidies in any way. I fund work through the consultancy and the training, so it's a for-profit company. And I have no academic background in teaching others to learn. So I wanted to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. And again, feel free to interrupt or ask whenever you want. So I thought at first, okay, we need, branding seems to be really important. And then when we went around the world, and we asked people like, oh, how important do you think branding is for your venture? They actually said, it's really important. Like, this will be the make or break thing for my company. That was interesting for me. And then they said, well, I would rate my knowledge 2.8. And we also asked people after the course, how would you rate your knowledge before? And then they give themselves a 0 or 1. So that was interesting because we're like, okay, for a lot of people, branding is crucial. Not for everyone. Of course, as brand strategists, we like to hear this, but there's lots of reasons people go out of business, legal, financial, etc. But this one can be really crucial in terms of helping you grow. We also thought about, this big question. I'm used to training designers. Can I now switch to training entrepreneurs to become brand strategists? And I think I was very skeptical about this, but I've been really, really pleasantly surprised because no matter where you go and no matter what level you teach, so whether it's people who have MBAs and are in accelerators like at Growth Africa here in Nairobi, or whether you go to Mathare, in this case, there's something about the human brain that wants to think like a brand strategist. Something in us, and I think maybe what you were saying is very true, something in us that just naturally wants to clarify what we do and wants to find a way to really put that to words and put that out there for people to see and understand. And so I think from this group of young people in Mathare, there were like 4 or 5 totally natural brand strategists that were just within 20 minutes totally tuned into it. And I thought that was, those are amazing examples. Yes, we can teach people, but engineers are excluded. I mean, it's not a scientific fact, but I've noticed in all our trainings, the people who do worst are the engineers. Because they have no empathy for what someone else might think of their product or what they might want in terms of usability, and they don't want to take any crap from me. So that makes for very interesting trainings if these guys and girls are involved. I'm open to changing my mind. Yes.
I was just going to say they're also the worst people to coach.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, that's
coachable.
Okay.
Do we have any engineers in the room or any engineers online?
Any husbands and wives of engineers you want to? Yeah.
Now you know why they behave like that, your husband or wife.
So when I started on this journey like 3 or 4 years ago, the knowledge resources around branding were really scarce. It's really hard to find good stuff. And now it's like, oh my God, everywhere I look, there's a course or a training or an article with 3 tips, 5 steps, 8 reasons why, 10 reasons why not. Get your logo for $5, get your... and so that was an interesting development because you realize like, oh, okay, there's a lot of knowledge out there. How much of that stuff is actually quality knowledge by people who know what they're talking about? I don't want to make an estimate, but I think it's hard for people nowadays. I think the problem has not become where do I find information. The problem becomes what information is good. So I would say that at this moment, I would say reliable and complete knowledge resources are really scarce. So you still have things that take 5 minutes to produce or take an hour to produce, but having the actual full method is really time intensive and it doesn't convert well in terms of click rates. So that's not something that people focus on. So that's why we decided to make this entire toolkit and this entire process of branding from start to finish so that we could be a reliable source for people and really be a very good place to start in terms of how do I create and build and grow my brand. And we learned some interesting things from the crowdfunding campaign. I'm not sure, is there anyone here who's ever run one? Okay. Was that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We pitched this idea of a toolkit for to think more like a brand strategist. I thought there's no one who's going to buy this because this is super niche. Like, who's going to wait? Like a cool backpack, that's what people love to pay for these days on Kickstarter. But this is a very niche thing. And nonetheless, we managed to raise $42,000 for it. One of the things that surprised me is that we used Kickstarter also as a way to test the market, but also what do people want to learn and how do they want to learn it. So in my mind, with the mission of Sierra Leone in kind of top of mind, I thought, okay, digital is best because we can get it anywhere in the world. You don't have to wait for UPS to deliver to your Shamba or wherever. It's cheaper. And it turned out that when we were presenting the rewards to people, everyone wanted paper. And so now all of a sudden, you're like, oh, but now we have a paper bookstore on our hands, and how are we going to do that? Because I'm always traveling. I don't have the resources to have 2,000 books in my garage and ship them out whenever someone orders them. There's, of course, lots of ways that you can now solve that online, but 3 years ago that wasn't the case yet. Especially, interestingly enough, I think if you're in the US, a lot of these solutions are available. If you're in Europe, per country base, with a lot of the problems around VAT tax and how something is built online, you'd be surprised how much time you lose trying to figure out how to simply get a book to people. We found a publisher to publish the canvas as an actual big canvas. So that was a great solution because here's a guy in Germany who just does the shipping and handling for us. So that was great. So it turns out people find paper handy. Paper was deadly for me. I think it took me months of brain power to figure it out with all these little minute things getting in your way that you're just like, oh, why can't I find my way through this mess? We get a lot of questions around why don't you make your stuff for free? Because if it's free, it'll make a bigger impact. Any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think when people pay for it, they value it.
Yeah?
There's so much free out there that I'm reluctant to often go for the free stuff because I think, well, I'd actually, sometimes you want to pay for something. You want to feel like you're actually getting your value.
Yeah, well, so I felt the same, and I thought, okay, let's test this through the Kickstarter. So we made a request online. We said, nominate organizations that you think could use a toolkit. We'll send however many toolkits they need. And so we had, for instance, I think we ended up sending about 25 toolkits to 8 organizations. You know, me packing boxes, taping them closed, putting them in the shipping, getting phone calls from India. It hasn't arrived. Anyway, it arrives. And so a year later, I go to India to check out what they're doing with the toolkit, and they're like, yeah, they're in the office. I'm like, okay, yeah, what? Like they're still in the box. And so graciously they offered to pose for me with the books. Bless their souls. But this is also a good example of unless you have a really, a need, the money is going to trigger you to think do I really need this? Because now if I would have told them oh yeah, it's $50 per book, they probably would have figured out, when do we use it? How do we use it? Etc. So yeah, unfortunately that was confirmed, money is a motivation test. Another thing that we looked at,
and just a comment from online, Deborah was saying it's a great way to get people to try it out and get feedback. And then, I don't think the sentence was finished, then once you've refined the product or the service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we did, for both the toolkit and all the other tools, we did rounds of testing. So the toolkit, the full toolkit, we first tested with all the participants at Amani. and we had 6 people go through the entire process, and we had 4 brand strategists from different parts of the world go through it step by step. That was quite intense, but yeah, really important to test it first. So another assumption that we were making is that if you standardize training, it's more efficient. So for every request I get, if I go and make something special, that means that I'm going to spend a few days creating a program, I'm going to run it, it's going to be great, I'm going to be exhausted at the end of it because there's all kinds of unexpected stuff. Now I know how to do that program better, but there's not another request. So I thought, okay, let's create a standard training, 3 types of standard training. And it's true that that is energy efficient and it's cheaper for the person who's commissioning us. So we do these, we call them brand camps, so we do these all across the world again. So this is, for instance, in Jordan. And they're really fun, and you learn a lot. So in 3 hours, entrepreneurs, they get to understand the model, they get to design their own model, they get a few hours with me to brainstorm ideas. But we also realized, like, oh yeah, the customized training are in a way, a bigger return on energy because you see after 3 days what you can actually accomplish with someone. So I think there's a bit of a devaluation of, you know, oh, in 3 hours you can learn to be a brand strategist, or oh, in 2 hours business model canvas, you'll be up and running. I struggle with that, and I think we live in a culture where people expect that, and so, you know, if people walk away from a course and say like, oh, well, I expected, you know, to be a brand strategist now, it's like, well, it took me 13 years and 4 years in school to get there, so, you know, have patience with me. But I think that's an important thing that we deal with.
I just wanted to tell you that, like, for us at work, this is something that we struggle with as well. How to strike the balance between like standardized kind of off-the-shelf stuff, which is much easier to do and sell, versus the customer, which is a lot of effort, and every client expects something different. So like, how do you standardize? And we've kind of introduced something like, I don't know if it's in the middle or a third category called personalized, not customized, not standardized, but kind of personalized.
Okay. That's
so
it. Yeah.
Kind of like thinking about it.
That's interesting.
One thing I've noticed is, you know, clients don't want to pay for development time. You know, sometimes like they want that customization, but the development time is tough. And one of the things, like, I've really shaken up my business in the last year, just rebranding, webs, like everything, and it's been so hard and so exciting and every emotion possible. And one of the things I've started to do is collating, just getting way more organized about the data that I'm collecting, because that's a super fast way to customize something. And so, for example, you know, if I'm doing something on conflict resolution, I'll ask clients how they feel about conflict, and then that leads into an exercise. But they also get access to all the hundreds of other people and organizations that have filled in that question, and they see all that data. Right? So just getting much more organized, because the tools make it so easy. It, you know, it is amazing. And then they can sort of see, well, if I'm doing a team building thing, well, here's how other organizations, you know, here's where they're at in terms of fit, belong, grow, you know, all of those things. And they really like it. So it's a way of customizing without a huge amount of time.
Yeah, those are good tips. I'll just give you an example because I think it's a really interesting one. So, for instance, here at Amani Institute, these are people who are all in the social sector. These are not people who want an example of Apple, Airbnb, you know, those kind of companies. They're evil. They should stay miles away from those examples. While I think we can learn a lot from it, it's going to get my ratings of satisfaction about the class are going to go down. So we created 5 different case studies specifically for this group. So these are people from South America and Africa and Europe, North America, that will appeal to them in the social sector, because we just need those examples. We need to have a benchmark of success, right? Like, oh, these are things you could learn from. Not saying to copy it, you can improve it, but these are things you can learn from. Now I'm going to have to answer every single little question. What is a good name for a business in the social sector? What is a good brand promise? What is the best vision you've ever heard? What is the best vision within a children's charity? What is the best way to describe we empower women? So it's quite intense, but the results are amazing because you have 22 to 25 people who have a much clearer understanding of how they can sell things, and we get really, really good feedback on that very customized stuff. And that gives you a lot of, like, these trainings are exhausting. They're 3 days in a row. They're 9 hours a day. It's me with an assistant, but it gives you a lot of energy, and you go kind of home with a lot of hope. Like, oh, there's these people that still have energy to change the world. Good for them. But then we also work, for instance, with the Ministry of Defense in the Netherlands. Totally different group. Military, not creative thinkers, very much about hierarchy. And so they asked us to create a workshop to help people in their innovation team think entirely different about what the role of the defense forces is. So I created a workshop around the concept, what if the Ministry of Defense was the Ministry of Peace? And what would that mean for the people they hire and the technology that they develop and the tanks that they have and the collaboration? So would they now be collaborating with development organizations or conflict resolution specialists? Again, this is customized, and the customization is paid for, and the outcomes are great. Another case, in Saudi Arabia, there's a princess called Rima bint Bandar al-Saud, and she's one of the people that's leading the kind of changes that you might have seen coming out of Saudi in the past year and a half. And she realized that women are now able to work in Saudi in certain particular areas of the economy, and that they have quite good training. Like, there's really highly educated women in Saudi Arabia, but they've just never had to think about how do I position myself on the job market. So she had seen the tools in the Netherlands and then said, can you create a custom toolkit for the women in my that come to our training sessions? So, great challenge, right? I mean, again, deviating from the scaling and the scalability. So we created a toolkit for them and trained trainers in Saudi Arabia to deliver it. So that's the way to achieve scale. Is now we have 12 people in Saudi Arabia who are able to work. So I think today we've trained about 200 people. This is a really great way for us to actually make a difference. I'm just one person. 3 years ago, I was working with 6 brands a year to do custom brand development, and now we can work with, you know, a couple of thousand people a year. That's pretty great. The same with the training in Sierra Leone. Now we're training marketeers to be brand experts. That's also a custom product, but it has huge impact. So the balance between how do you make something that is standard and therefore scalable and customizing, this is a kind of tightrope that we're walking every day. To the point of the tools again, I've had a few people come up to me and say, like, oh, what you're doing is great. You know, I'm going to create like an online course. I have a tool, I'm going to put it online. It's just so low effort, it'll just make me money while I'll do other things. Like, okay, it's a good idea. So what's really interesting is I used to think about this as well. Like, as soon as our tools are done, we put them online, they will sell themselves, we will go and do something else. So we were kind of hoping that we'd have this little sausage factory in the basement that would just be churning out sausages while I was doing important things for people elsewhere. But actually not the case, because that's you. Because the machine needs constant feeding. Because now all of a sudden you're customer service to people who can't use their credit card. And you have people who maybe worry about their data, and you want your tools to be up to date. So when we use case studies in the toolkit, the company goes out of business, I don't want them in my toolkit. I want the toolkit to be up to date. So last year we took about 4 months full time to update it, which is an immense investment. And then also there is the marketing of it, because you can put it online and like do this, but that's what I'm always telling people. Like, I don't want you to be doing this. Anytime you do this, you're in the wrong spot, right? So it's nice to have it online. It's nice to have a digital version that, you know, scales, you can print, you can use. But distributing tools online is a really big effort. And I'm trying to create a machine that can run without me while I'm off doing more important things. So I was confused about which direction I should take. And my coach, important people, told me, I want you to focus on getting the book in the hands of 1 million people. I don't care how you do it. This is going to be the one thing you're going to achieve this year. Okay. So I called publishers. And yeah, to my delight, the first one said yes. That doesn't happen very often. It doesn't show very well, but so yeah, the toolkit's going to be a book. It's going to be released now at the end of the month in the Netherlands, and then in February worldwide. We're going to have distribution through Amazon, and it's going to be electronic, and so this is someone else is going to be the sausage machine. Interestingly enough, we're going to make 1/26th of what we were making on the digital tools, because you now get a commission, and you know, the printer takes a chunk, the publisher takes a chunk, the bookstore takes a chunk, Amazon takes a chunk, which is fine. It's about spreading it. And the idea is that through the official publishing network, you'll just reach a bigger scale. You'll be in bookstores and things, and you'll be visible. And so I think this idea of actually still being a physical book in a bookstore is very appealing, because that's where people see things still, and where people go to be inspired by ideas, instead of the 3 things, you know, you need to know about branding on some blog somewhere. So I thought also, now that I'm sharing everything that kind of, you know, goes wrong, goes right, I also thought that combining consultancy with doing the tools and the training was really the best ecology for creating great content. Because if I'm training people, I need better tools. If I'm designing tools, I need to test them. So the training and the tools are a great combination. But where am I going to get all the ideas and the knowledge is if I'm going to be working with the people who I want to help. So in the past 3 years, I've worked with a lot of different lovely companies, some of them here in Kenya, others outside, who are all in the kind of tech for good space, to help them develop their brand. So the brand strategy, the naming, the visual identity, sometimes the implementation, consultancy over time. And it gets you a lot of ideas. It gives you case studies, you see what people run into, you see how people can avoid making like $1 million mistake. So it's really, really great. But it also means that you're like the slowest startup in the world. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, you're like a bit of peanut butter that's like spread over 11 sandwiches, and none of those 11 sandwiches taste really good. Yeah, that's still a big question that we're trying to address. And then Leanne, you asked me, how do you measure impact? Woo! That's a big question. So this is a really important point, right? Because you don't just want to be doing something, and when you get anecdotal evidence that people love it, you go like, oh yeah, we've accomplished something. But just traditionally, there's huge issues with measuring the impact of branding. So it's notoriously hard because it's almost impossible to exclude it from other factors. So for instance, if I'm going to measure, you know, what is the influence of a Blue Band billboard on the sale of Blue Band, this could be influenced by factors like, is Blue Band available in the stores nearby? Was it the end of the month that people have their salaries? Is it close to Christmas? So it's notoriously hard to do that. And in order to do that, you need a lot of money. no one has any money in the social enterprise space to test whether what they're doing is effective. On the topic of branding, like you'll invest money in the impact side potentially, but there's very few people that are willing to open up and say like, okay, I'm going to invest $100,000 to see if our branding has worked this year. It's tough. Testing brand recognition. So if you say like, oh, okay, as a school or as a tech company, I want to test how many people now know about me. You're going to have to call a lot of people before you can do that. And so companies like Unilever or Safaricom are traditionally very good at that, but that's because they have the manpower and the resources, right? So as we're moving forward, I think evidence is always, unfortunately, anecdotal. So what we do is we measure people's satisfaction with the course and satisfaction with the tools. For the training, what we do is we ask people before and after for a rating of their skills. Does it make a difference in your daily work? I think is super important. Like, yeah, great, I've learned something, I thought it was great, but like, how do I now apply it? That's where we really need to make a difference. We use a net promoter score, so would you advise someone else to do this? And then if there's a custom training, we do a 360-degree assessment. So we ask the person to rate themselves on 5 different factors concerning branding and ask other people, and then do it again after a number of months. Yeah, we still have to rely on anecdotal evidence. What have you done with this? What has helped? It hasn't helped. Yeah, it's a big thing. I wish I could devote more time to that. If anyone has any ideas or feedback how that could be done, it'd be interesting. Yeah, and then there's the training of trainers. I thought I would ask you to shut off the camera, but I think it's nice to have everyone online still involved. So.
Do you want to just explain to people why you said that?
Yeah, so we've been doing a pilot, and we've just reviewed 2 days ago with the pilot participants, and so I wasn't entirely happy with like telling the whole world about what we've been doing without having discussed the results explicitly with everyone in the group. So, yeah, it's between us. It's between us and friends and such. Yeah, so in my situation, as you can tell, like I'm doing a lot of stuff, right? This is a lot of stuff. This is not human to be doing this much stuff. And you need focus. But you also want to grow, right? You want to grow the impact, you want to reach more people. So traditionally, everyone would say like, oh, okay, no. Just, you need to hire more people so you can sell more workshops. And that way you get many, many more participants. But I'm a bit afraid of that because more people also means that I now have a factory of selling training. And this is a tough situation for me because I'm not so grounded in any particular place in the world. And that's a big financial burden. It ties me to one spot. And I'm also afraid that the mission will get diluted. So it's very easy for me to sell like a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 training to a big company. Why would I have my team of trainers do lots of things that I think are very impactful if I could also be selling a few of those to make up for things that sell less? And I've seen that in design agencies that I've worked at, and it can be really detrimental. I really want to be experts in this and not experts in selling tampons and lipstick. So this was a question like, okay, how do you then scale? I used to think other brand strategists were kind of competition. So we got this request from someone who was using the toolkit, like, oh, can I discuss with other social entrepreneurs what their challenges are in like something like a Facebook group. It's like, okay, 2 years ago I started a little Facebook group. To my surprise, 99% of the people that come into the Facebook group are brand strategists promoting their services. And I was like, this is not the intention. Like, I'm not here to help you sell yourself. I want you to support social entrepreneurs. And they weren't necessarily sharing their challenges. They were just kind of lurking in silence and maybe, not feeling so welcome to express things. And so I had to actively work to get more social entrepreneurs in that group and to help them. How do you craft your questions? Because it can be hard to have a discussion around branding on a forum. You're exposing a lot about yourself. It's often big topics. And then I thought, okay, maybe I need to change this around. Maybe I need to look at other brand strategies as allies. So if I want social entrepreneurs all over the world to have local experts to help them, who are trained in how to help you sell social change better, I'm going to need all those brand strategists actually. So that was a good moment. That was a good day. Put a bit of pressure off me. So I thought, okay, so the idea would be that you have this movement of trainers across the world. You have people in Sierra Leone, you have people in Kenya, South Africa, India, Holland, the UK, Belgium, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, like all the different places where you need to be. And we need to create some kind of standardized trainer programs that we can train lots of these people. And they need to become experts in enabling social entrepreneurs to build better brands. So most of them are not. And it's really an expertise. Like, it's not like, oh, I've always worked for Unilever, let me just now help you with your orphanage. It doesn't really translate one-on-one. So it just requires a bit of changing the mindset. I want them to thrive in their practice. So I want them to do well. I'm not asking them to volunteer their time for a good cause. That's not sustainable. I want them actually to do personally and professionally and financially well through the methods. If they want to do it on a volunteer basis, that's fine. But that's not, I really think it's not sustainable. And I want them to build local expertise and local case studies. So I'm not sure if you've ever read a book on branding, but they're all about Apple and Nike and Coca-Cola, and it's like no one has that kind of money. And no, that doesn't apply to your situation in your country or in your city. And seeing, I think, one of the things that's really important to me is that we have respect for local cultures, and that local culture is actually expressed through brands. So just smearing this kind of global tech startup-y feel across every change-making organization in the world, that's not going to work. We need someone in Brazil who knows, who can express this for a social entrepreneur really well in a way that appeals to a local audience, that also adds something to the local culture. And I would like them to exchange knowledge amongst each other, so that I have to take my foot off this garden hose. So good to have paint this pretty picture, obviously. So then you get this challenge of like, okay, but I want these people to be all across the world. People are not going to be able to afford to fly in, especially the people that matter to me. There's plenty of people who can afford to fly in, not necessarily the people that I think are crucial. We want trainers to be able to reach an audience that's wide as well. So we want them to be able to work with, for instance, in Brazil, in the favelas, as well as with a organic makeup brand. So if you want them to work with different budgets and different people, how do you then, how do you work with that? And there needs to be a sustainable financial model, because this takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and if I'm going to have to, sustain this over many years, it's going to have to make me a living. And how do you guarantee good training when I'm not physically present to test your training capabilities? So it's a really tough one. Like, that kept me from not doing anything online for a long time, because I've had people who work on my team come join me in a training that have been exposed to how we work for a year, and I would be sometimes, not so happy with the outcome. And so how do you do that online? Obviously every trainer is different. Is that a problem or is that a good thing? So everyone has a different amount of experience, different expertise. There's someone working in small businesses for women, someone working in organic, fast-moving consumables. How does that work? So I decided, okay, let's just live and learn. So we invited this group of 13 people who are either in the creative industries or within branding from all across the world, so from Thailand to the US and Kenya to Jordan, to join a pilot group. And the goal of the pilot really was to find out, can we really train people without physically being in the same location? What type of trainer would be best suited to the program? What's the best format? What should we be teaching? What do people want to know? And how do we guard and the delivery of quality? How long should it be? How many hours? What, like online video course, hangout, PDF with the training manual, these kind of things. So what I did is on the go. So we started last winter. I just said, okay, we're going to take 6 months for this. I'm going to write a trainer's manual every month on a particular topic. We're going to have a hangout around that particular topic. The chapter I'll record for people. No, that's not true. The first session, I delivered the course myself live, and then it evolved from there. We also did some pitch nights. So basically you have 13 people in all these different time zones in online hangouts discussing, the manual, the topic, what are your questions, what's your experiences. They had to do homework assignments. So we started with the question of like, okay, what does it mean to be a brand thinking trainer? What will your practice look like? How do you want to integrate it into your practice as a brand strategist? We then looked at how do you build your brand as a trainer, and we pulled people through the methodology in the way that you would have to teach it. Total eye-opener, because it turns out actually that makes you question like, oh, but what's my purpose as a trainer? And that's super crucial, right? And so you all of a sudden experience like, oh, I'm not just, in the Netherlands we said the plumber's house, the taps always leak. But the brand strategist actually needs to have a brand strategy. So that was interesting because now this is a process that takes some time. Like, oh, you're not going to say, like, oh, purpose, let me just write down my purpose and then tomorrow I'll have it. So that's a very interesting thing in a 6-month program when you have these 1-month increments. We spoke about what are the different training formats. So I took them through the standardized and the customized training that we developed. We looked at how do you market and sell this, how do you guard quality, etc. And I think what was really amazing is that from these 13 people, we initially lost 2 pretty quickly because of time zone. So someone in Thailand and someone in New Zealand said, listen, I gotta sleep, this is the wrong hour for me. This is totally understandable, of course. Then we lost about 2 or 3 people who just weren't a match in terms of topic. So they were totally excited about being a brand strategist, but it's kind of like, yeah, I'm totally excited about being a concept pianist, but if I need to put 4 hours a day into becoming a concept pianist, then that actually I'm finding it's not what I want, which is fair. And luckily we had some more people who knew that there was a pilot going on who came in who were the right match. So we had a coach who's coaching people, who's using the method to help people find their purpose and articulate better what they want to do. We had, you see her in the corner all the way on top, a woman in Atlanta who's a really good brand strategist. She works with women entrepreneurs, small businesses, who was totally into it and really enthusiastic. We had a big group of people actually from Brazil and Argentina who were so driven because there's not a lot of stuff available on their continent on this topic. And before you know it, after 6 or 7 or 8 months, you have this community of people And it was a really great experience because, oh, it's not just me, and like, okay, it's not just me. I have a few employees and I work with 30 freelancers about, but now there's this group of like-minded people who go out on their own engine, on their own motivations. So that was really good. So yeah, as I said, so we just did the review a few days ago, and the responses are, so I can't share the responses here right now, but I think overall the feedback was really positive. So, you know, one lady said like, oh, if I would estimate what this means for my business, it's totally become the model on which my entire business runs. So I would think it's worth about $15,000, which was great for me, but of course we're not charging $15,000. But there were a few things that, of course, we learned along the way again. So I thought, after 2 sessions, people said, I think the live lectures aren't working. I think we need some kind of online video format. It's much more engaging. We need to do that before we do the lecture. And that makes sense. You flip the classroom so that the time you have live is there, you know, to interact. So I said, okay, creating a good video course, it's a huge investment. Getting 1 hour into a compelling video, it costs a lot of money in terms of production. People have such a high standard of what something should look like, and so, especially when you're in this branding space. So I did a few tries in there, and I was just like, no, first of all, it's one-way traffic, it's super expensive to produce, and it's potentially ineffective. Because what I notice is that if you would ask people, have you seen the video? They'd be like, yeah. But then if you would ask a question about something, actually that was in minute 40, and a lot of people never made it to minute 40. And so I spoke to someone, and I won't name them on Facebook Live, who sells these online courses, and I said, how do you guys do it? And he's like, the secret is we don't. If people pay for something, they don't use it. That's their problem. And he said almost 90% of even the best video courses never get finished. And I thought, okay, well, that's a good thing, because of course for us video would mean scale, and it would mean, you know, like a sausage machine in the basement to a certain extent, because you need to update it and stuff. But if it's actually not training anyone, then it's not doing anything for me either. Good lesson. So we thought that testing for quality is a must. And I realized during the course that actually no, testing for quality should be done by the market. So these are not people that are going out saying, I am a trainer for the branding. These are independent strategists, independent creatives, who offer training with our tools. Just in the way that there are people who are doing training with the business model canvas or with any other tool. You can get certified for a certain amount of money with most of those tools, but you don't have to. And I've had some amazing experiences with trainers who were not certified but knew exactly how to use a particular type of tool. So I think that by treating my trainers as experts and saying, I trust you to use these tools in a respectable manner, I think you will see how you can use them, how you can integrate them. And if you're not doing a good job, you will be out of business pretty soon because you're doing a bad job. That's the only way that I can actually make this a scalable model. And one of the ways that we could integrate it into the program is that people have to pilot workshops for us during the program. So in the 8 months, they have to put their new knowledge to work in organizing pilots where they actually train people. So for instance, they have a group of 2 people or a group of 40 people. One woman had 400 participants during the course of 6 months, a high-powered person. And we can ask these participants, we ask the trainers to send out a review form, same review form we use for our trainings. and we asked those participants in those pilots to review how did someone do, and we used that review material during the class. So that if we would get forms that said, like, this person is horrendous, like these are, like someone's scoring really bad, we can address that during the training. Maybe there are some people with questions around this, because I know this is a bit controversial. Yeah.
So this is like, just like a broad question, that's just occurring to me now. Would you say that your company is a training company, or is it a brand strategy company that offers training?
Yeah, so we are so as I pitch it, is that we're a learning company. We do trainings ourselves, and we have tools that we develop, but those tools are open to anyone to use. So you can use them as an individual, or you can use them as a trainer. If you're a trainer, then you have to license it per person you train. And so it's kind of an open platform, basically. And I think this is also, for me, really important. I never set out to create a company that does, as a company, that we do 6,000 trainings a year, 500 or 200. I set out to think like, oh, how can we get this knowledge to spread? And so enabling people and saying, here's the ball and please run with it, is the best way that I feel I can do that. Instead of standing in the way at every point and saying, no, you can't use my tools, they're copyrighted, which they are, but there's a flexible license system around it. Or no, we only publish the book in this country, or yeah, we train people, but there's a massive price and a really long waiting list and you have to fly to Holland. Like, how can you open it up? So, yes? No?
You talk about the fact that online videos, courses, you don't believe are going to work. And I mean, I think there's a lot out there that says they actually do work as long as you combine them with different methods and make sort of a blended learning. Because there's a lot you can talk about on an online video and make them short videos that people can get quickly without, and then sort of following on with a webinar, following on with a sort of face-to-face forum.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there is a space for the online video. And sometimes, I know it's like you're branding, so people are expecting this really good production. But I've watched some of the best videos that I've learned from, and I've watched people sitting in front of their Mac and just being engaging and having a good topic.
Yeah.
And actually they cost nothing.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a balance for that format.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, which brings me to another topic, which is the local meetups. So when we now have this massive group of allies, let's call them, in all these different locations, people can team up, right? So if we have a group of 6 people in Brazil, hey, that's a team. And if you can combine things like online learning with a support group on location, I think that's a very effective way of doing it. And I totally agree with you in terms of that you can do things very simply behind the screen, but when you're also explaining models and you have to take people through tools, there's a little bit more that comes into it in terms of production and interaction and graphics. And that was just something that held me back, because I know it'll take us 7 months to produce the amount of content that's in the method in a productive way, and I would need to raise funds for that. So I know, for instance, from the Kickstarter for the book, it took about as long to get the money to make the book as it was to make the book. And so I'm also a little bit, like I feel some necessity, some urgency to move fast, because I'm just a little bit pessimistic about where we're heading in the world. We need to get going now, instead of let me raise, the money I need to produce this course. We're going to need I won't bother you with the list of costs that we have, but so I think your point is really good. Like, you can do things for free and or simple, and that's also how we did the pilot. We didn't do any production for it. It was just like me doing things. Really good point. I might also come back to my whole video is not an effective way of learning. I might still have to do it that way. We also noticed that,
One last question. You want like this to like like go wide and have this knowledge just like all over the world, what kind of compromises does one have to make that happen? Because sometimes I feel like, for example, the standard that I have in my mind, but then I want like 1 million other people to get it, and for that to happen, I have to kind of like, do I have to compromise? Or are you thinking about areas of compromise?
Yes. So this is a little tough, but I've noticed that people who are interested in doing good within the space of branding aren't necessarily the best professionally. I'm not talking about the group of trainers that we worked with in the pilot. Just in general, I get so many applications of people saying, oh, I love what you're doing, I want to save the world too, let me come to Africa. Like, oh, I don't know about unleashing this. I make great logos, let me, if there's an orphanage, let me make, and that's like, oh, that's not the level that I'm talking about. So what I would really like is for people who really, really kick ass to take the lead on something and then grab that person who says like, oh yeah, I want to make a logo, but not put the person who's making the logo with the person that thinks that this is the solution to their problems, right? So that's tough. And I think what that requires is, again, letting your foot off the garden hose and saying like, okay, well, the market will decide whether or not this is a good solution, and what you can do is you can create more hangouts and try to create better groups and make it really compelling to join a group and make sure that you explain very well why is your method good and why does it help people to lift themselves up. And I think what was a big lesson for me is that I'm not out there to make people who are, say, a B and A. I'm out there to make someone who's like a D, a C, or a B. It's far more important to me. So I think those things are good to know. I also think that you need to let go of the idea that you need to own the solution, right? So when I first started doing this and I saw all these brand strategists promoting themselves in my group, I got all nervous. I was like, oh no, like these people are totally like stealing my shine. No, actually they're not. And I don't know if you know this video. I know, Leanne, that you want me to wrap up. There's this video of a weird guy dancing at a festival. Have you ever seen this? A weird guy dancing at a festival. Someone else decides, oh, I'm going to follow his lead. I'm also going to do the weird move. But he kind of adds like a little bit of a different thing. And then before you know it, there's 5,000 people all doing their own thing. And I think that's a really good example of like, oh yeah, you have an idea. You can kind of show people the trick, but people are going to do their own thing, and that's great. Some people are going to do it better than you, are going to have a different perspective. And so I really, I think this is a big lesson. I think the legal aspect is a big problem, because I know from several people who've been very successful at publishing tools that they release stuff publicly. There's a huge amount of piracy, of course, and there's a huge amount of abuse. Like, I'm not going to tell someone, I'm going to ask people to be respectful of our licenses, and I hope that they do that, and I hope that we prove to them that we do good things with the money that we make through them. But still, there's people who will not value something and who will take something, and I think the biggest thing is not to let that bother you. Because if your mind is bothered by that, and you're going to litigate it's like this waste of your life. And my lawyer was like, don't say that anywhere. Yeah, but still, like, I don't want to spend my time emailing people, or I don't want to hire someone and email people like, oh, I saw that you're using our tools and you haven't paid for them. Like, please give us $10 as you should. So yeah, that's just those are, I think, things.
And just a couple comments from online. Deborah said, I have lots of online studies. My last course was neuroeconomist with a professor in Russia. I was happy to do a test each week and get a diploma. However, this is run by a university. Coursera is the app I use to do my studies. You pay for the diploma, and this motivated me to do the course online. Not sure what this would cost you to set up, though, regards to the setup.
Yeah. So I think in terms of universities, because universities have prestige, it's great to have a certificate from a university. However, my brand presence is very small. Someone having a certificate says that the brandling thinks this is a great trainer. By the time someone in the US knows that, I'm going to be 10 years down the road, I'm going to have to build a massive branding and marketing machine around me. So I think the point is really good in terms of a lot of the trainers in the pilot want to have some sort of certification. And I think God bless them for wanting one from me, because I don't know what my name on your certificate will say, but there is but again, we can't certify someone if we don't know how they deliver the product. And math is easy to test, but branding expertise plus facilitation expertise plus benchmark and case study expertise is really hard for me to train from, or to test from outside. Yeah. So I appreciate the encouragement, because I know it's important to people.
Yeah. I was talking with a client yesterday. I don't know if this would be helpful. They use Moodle, and there's a plugin that they're using for a lot of peer assessment. So people upload, their work, and you also get assessed as a peer assessor. So there's some interesting. There's some interesting things. I'd like to thank Anne.
Yeah, just a quick wrap up, because the diversity of the group, so the experience levels, the sector knowledge and everything was actually fantastic. So having a woman in Atlanta working with small businesses, and someone in Brazil working with commercial businesses, and someone in Kenya working with NGOs and in slums was a great combination. Because if you have, obviously I don't need to champion diversity here, but it's an important one. And I think to your point also, like my big issue throughout the past 3 years was thinking that I needed to fix it. I need to come up with a solution. I need to get the lawyer. I need to come up with the earning model. I need to have the business model. I can scale this. And actually saying like, oh, no. Yeah, we can go create this. And again, letting your foot off the garden hose is really important. Yeah. I'll leave the rest.
So it's my honor
to
present you with a very small thank you card, and it's particularly my honor because 2 years ago Leah showed me her Kickstarter, her version from Kickstarter, and what stole my heart was the yellow rubber band.
Oh, yeah, the yellow rubber band lady.
Oh my goodness, it played into my love of color and office supplies. So, I thought the online book, but
it needs
the yellow rubber band. So then I was just like, oh, maybe I could print it out and try this around.
I'd heard that story from Leanne.
It was the yellow rubber band. It's missing the yellow rubber band. But thank you for making your tools accessible to all of us.
Thank you. Cool. Thanks again. This is the first edition of the kit. It's been updated. The digital version is online for just a few more days because unfortunately a publisher means that you can't distribute your tools yourself anymore. So everything's going to be taken offline. So if you do want a digital version, you can get it in the next few days. This one is going to be with Rianne, I think. I also brought something else. A friend of mine created this impact kit. These are all kinds of cards with ideas that change the world, that can inspire you if you're working on a concept for change. Just draw a card and think about how it could apply to your venture. So I'm adding that into the treasure trove.
So I just really want to echo those sentiments. Like, so kind of Anne to volunteer her time to do this and to give these two amazing resources to the resource library. I didn't know that was happening, so that's super great. And also, just to remind you, in case you've forgotten, that she's kindly offered, we get a 25% discount on the book. So that all that information is at the bottom of the agenda. So make sure that you take a look at that if you are interested in the book. And I've hired Anne to do some work for me, and I have the book, and just can't recommend her enough. Just really, really lovely. So, to sum up, community announcements. Does anyone have anything happening in your community that you want to share with us? Hannah.
We have a similar, not similar, but kind of a story of a lady who is also living in the school to set up a company help me out, what is that?
Who's creating a social movement while creating supporting business as well. There are multiple stories within our story.
So December 7th is the next Here We Are, and if people want more information, they would come.
Here we are on Facebook.
Okay, okay, great. Stanley.
So Spire and Shortlist are hosting, so Spire does training, Shortlist does recruitment. We are hosting a breakfast event on Friday, should be from 8 to about 10:30. And the topic of discussion of the workshop will be about how to define and live your organization or your company culture. Great for people who are,
Is it at Spire's office?
Sorry? At Spire offices.
And next Friday?
And that's on the 24th, yes.
Okay.
It should be 8 to 10:30.
So,
yes.
And Stanley, if people want more information from online, Meg is asking if people can speak up. So online. So Here We Are is December 7th, and Spire and another organization is having a wonderful sounding event on around organizational culture. And if they want more information, Stanley, they would.
They reached out through Leanne, who I will send the invites, and she can share.
Yeah, and if you're a member of the Facebook group, just you can upload it directly there. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll upload
Yeah.
an invitation to the
Great.
event.
So Stanley will put an invitation in the Facebook group.
I'm very much looking forward to your event, but there's another event on Tuesday, I think in the same building, called the Art of Networking. Do you know about that?
So the
And ACT.org.
there's a act.org Art of Networking. I'm just repeating for the folks online.
I can find it.
Great. Okay.
Workshop, and that one happens to be.
Great. So folks, feel free to upload those events into the Facebook group for sure. Paul, were you going to say something? No? Okay. 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 So the red envelope is around somewhere. If you haven't had a chance to donate or M-Pesa, donate cash or M-Pesa.
No, I can't.
Feel free. And the lending library. We have the 2 new resources today from Anne. We also have the cards, and I brought a couple of magazines too that can go out. And then just let me know if you want something, and I'll make a note of that before you go. And our next meeting is in January 19th, around the community canvas. So happy Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever other things are celebrated in this upcoming month. May you spend time in ways that fill your soul and also spike some of your adrenaline, some adventures.
I can't believe that you don't think you're a good copywriter because you have such a nice way with words.
You know, I was too close. I'm like, I can't. And actually, sorry, one other thing. I had ordered this. This was done through, I think, it's similar to a Kickstarter campaign. This is from a Vancouver sort of change maker activist. And it's about different ways to promote and affect change. And I wondered, Vancouver is not very friendly with time zone with Kenya. Basically, you put a pin through the earth and you come out in Vancouver pretty much. But I wondered if maybe you wanted me to contact her and see if we could do a session on this or something like that. It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So this is not a part of the resource library, but you feel free to take a look at it today if this is of interest. Be well, be safe. Thank you so much for coming from around the corner and from very, very far away. And feel free to hang out, and of course, feel free to hang out, network, etc. And thanks to everyone online. Thank you so much. And we'll stop the recording now, and feel free to take a look at it, whatever it suits. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You just press the...